Hello. It's Stephanie here from HMO Heaven again. Delighted to be back with you. And today's video is all about the things you need to be in place to have an amazing HMO investment that really works for you. A long-term investment success. And it's the 4 L's. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the 4 things to have a successful HMO investment today. These are the things you only do once. These are the things that are all to do with buying right. And the series of videos in the weeks after this will be the 5 things that you need to do to make sure you have a well-managed HMO that really delivers for you. And that's so important because the purchase and renovation is the shortest part, really. It's the management part and the management of your property for years to come that really adds a huge impact. But you've got to get the buying and the refurb right as well. So let's dive in. So just as a preamble to this, what I'm not going to talk about today is the things that you would need to have thought about before, which are, what do you want to achieve from your HMO investment? Is it more important to you to have cash flow and to have your profitable oh darlings, to have your profitable property business, finally got it out, or is it more important to you to have that capital growth and just to lock your money up? Or are you trying to free yourself from work or a 9-to-5 role, whereas that way the cash flow probably be more important? So that'll sort of indicate where you're going to invest, whether it's going to be in high capital appreciation areas or whether it's going to be in high cash flow areas. Now, high capital appreciation areas tend to be areas where there's super high demand, like London, and high cash flow areas tend to be areas where there's lower property prices. So therefore, the rentals that you get are higher as a proportion of the amount that you've invested in the deal. So that's something for you to think about before you start looking, and that will inform where you start to look. Now, some areas you've got both let's roll that again. Some areas you've got both capital appreciation and cash flow, and that's a totally winning deal. But as an everyday deal, you're more likely to tilt more one side than the other, and it's up to you which way you want to go. Okay, so the 4 L's is the first one, because if you're going into HMOs, sadly you need to get an understanding of what is allowable, what is legal, what the statutory requirements and regulations are. Now, across the whole of the UK right now, any property with 5 or more people from 2 or more households is an HMO and requires HMO licensing, However, in certain parts of the country, in certain locations within a particular city, any council can add additional licensing or Article 4 or additional requirements or larger room sizes. So it's important to check locally for your area and see what the requirements are. And that is a simple process. You just go onto your council's website and all the information will be there as part of the HMO portal. For example, in Wales, where we are, 3 or more people from 2 or more households and you require an HMO licence. So it's much more restrictive. And if that's similar where you are, or are there pockets of streets where it's like that, you need to know all about that and what's required to take your property from a house to an HMO in your area. Okay, so that's all on your council's websites, but I encourage you also to check that out with local investors and speak to people who are doing it, just so that you don't get lumbered with an extra cost which not everyone is liable for. Because sometimes we found that a council might say one thing to one person and another thing to another person. So do push back if you're lumbered with any high costs which you're not sure if that's really required. Talk to people, take advice, and push back if necessary, because we have seen that really work. Obviously, tenant safety is a number one imperative importance, so we do everything for that. But some of the requirements are a bit strange and quirky. So do take advice from people who are operating in your local area if you get any strange requirements that you weren't expecting. So number 2, and this won't be any surprise to anyone, it's location, location, location. For any property investment strategy, location is so important, and HMOs are no different. So for an HMO, what you want to have is people hubs. You want to have your property near people hubs, and the more people hubs you are near, the longer term and more resilient your property will be as an investment property. So let me give you an example of what I mean by people hubs. So I mean hospitals, large employers, universities, shops and restaurants, great transport links. Those are all people hubs. They're magnetic for people. People are going to those areas that have those qualities. And the other thing you need to know is that in any local area there are streets, parts of streets, sides of streets that are no-go areas, or that are not desirable areas for young professionals. So if young professionals are your market, you need to make sure that you get some local insight so that you know that you're buying in an area or a street or a location that is going to work for you. People will want to live there, because why put barriers in your way? HMOs are a competitive marketplace, still hugely profitable. But why put barriers in your way when you're buying your property, when you're making your choice? Choose a property that's going to work where people want to live, and make sure that you get that local intelligence so you know that you're not making any faux pas that are just simply for people who are out of town people. The next L is layout, and this is important. What do I mean by layout? I mean, does the house work? You've got the floor plans. Can you change those floor plans cost effectively, i.e. that the investment in that property, the extra investment for the refurbishment, is going to be repaid and you're going to get a great yield on it. So it needs to have a good sized living space if that's a requirement in your area. I need to say that because in our area it is typical that you would have a living space in a property, but I know that in some parts of London you just don't have a living space, and that doesn't stop you at all from being able to rent out your property. But do investigate your marketplace and know. But if you need a living area, make sure that your living area is a decent size, that your bedrooms are decent size. If you're chopping up a sort of 2-bed to make a 5-bed 2-bath HMO, you know, sometimes those buildings just don't work well as places for 5 people to live. So think about that, because it will impact you. It will, because people are not just prepared to put up with anything nowadays, and because there's more competition in the marketplace and there are more attractive places to live, you need to ensure that the property you buy, as well as being in the right location, is the right layout, and it's the right layout, and it's a lovely place to live. That the bedrooms they don't necessarily need to be huge, but they need to be well thought out, and the living areas and the bathrooms need to be located in ways that really work for the house. So that's just something to bear in mind also. Sometimes you don't need to try and make, I was going to say, silk purse out of a sow's ear. But sometimes you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear because the sow's ear is such a small shape. It just won't go to a 6-bed, 6-ensuite HMO. It's just not going to happen. So you've got to choose the right raw materials that are going to let you get the outcome that you want and need. And going to somewhere tiny that's way out of town, that's cheap and cheerful, could work, but you're not going to get the rental returns that you maybe would get if you had your property in the centre of town. So just things to bear in mind if you do want to do that, and you're targeting a different market. Maybe you're going for DSS tenants. It's a different marketplace, and the rents and the type of work that you do with your tenants will reflect that. So our final L is lifestyle. You have to think about how people want to live, because this is a business at the end of the day, and our customers are our tenants, and it's up to us to ensure that we're creating a lifestyle that people want. That is the product. It's living. It's a home that you want to come to, and our role as HMO landlords is to make that product, because it is a product and a service, as good as it can be, to speak to our marketplace at the price point that we're pricing our property for. So some of the things that we notice that people really love is extra space. They love extra storage. That's hugely important. And people love en suites. So if you're using shared bathrooms, most of our properties are shared bathrooms, 2 or 3 people max, and ideally 2, but some of our properties we have got 3. In fact, some of our properties we've got 4 sharing, because we're just managing those properties and took them on as they are, and they do work well. But I mean, when investing in a property, try and make it as easy for your business as you possibly can, and you do that by buying right in the first place. And I would say 2 or 3 to a bathroom is a good rule of thumb. If you can go en suite and it's cost effective for the project and it's doable by the layout of the project, then absolutely do that, because ensuite rooms are hugely more in demand than rooms with shared bathrooms. And parking. Just over 50% of our tenants drive a car, and so parking is really important. When you're selling those rooms, 1 out of 2 times it will be somebody who's driving a car, and so it is worthwhile buying a property that at least has some on-street parking. It doesn't need to be dedicated off-street parking, but definitely on-street parking, so people can park outside the house, take their shopping in, unload or unpack. If there's a no-go area outside the house, and I have seen HMOs for sale in locations where you literally cannot stop outside the house, and for me, I don't feel that works. That's not going to be an easy sell, and it's just difficult for the people living there. I mean, so where possible, you want to buy your property, make sure that you've got parking, at least some on-street parking. And the better you get all that right, the fewer voids you have, the happier tenants you have, and the better for you when you come to exit this investment in many years hence, and you want to sell your property. You'll be much easier to sell it if you have all these things in place. That is, obviously, if it's legal. If it's in the right location next to lots of people hubs, if it has a great layout and space feel, and if it creates a good lifestyle for the people who live there. So I hope you've enjoyed that one, and join me next week when I'll be talking about all the management tips you need to do, the 5 management must-haves for a well-managed HMO. And the better you get all these things right, the fewer voids you have, the fewer empty rooms. So actually, the better you get this right, the more profitable your investment will be for you in the long term. And if you've enjoyed this, guys, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. If you haven't done that, please subscribe, red button below. And we have an HMO tips if you can't get enough. If you want more of this, we have an HMO tips playlist on YouTube, and we'd love to see you there. And we have our HMO Heroes group on Facebook for an inspiring community of HMO investors. So do come over and say hello. And until next week, it's bye for now.